good? My name is Taylor. I am a good vibes cultivator, content creator, radio personality, and just all around me. I'm from Akron, Ohio. Anybody from Akron? Okay. No. But I just recently moved to Georgia. Yeah, I mean, as far as like a favorite podcast or content that I like to listen to, it would be Amanda Seales. I do like her small dosage, and On Purpose by Jay Shetty. I'm really a big fan of his. So those are like the two that I kind of go to from time to time. And as far as YouTube, I like State of the Culture. Joe Budden, I just like Joe Budden in general. But yeah, so those are a couple.
Thank you. So, how would you describe this industry? So I tried to give some caveats because I feel like we may be quick to say, like, in certain generations that, oh, there's not a vlog or a YouTube that I follow, but it seems to be a progression of what radio was. And so
Yeah.
can you talk about the progression of the industry and then your definition of what the industry is that you're representing?
I feel like at this point, as far as like the industry, I don't think it's a one thing anymore because we've now allowed it where anyone can do it. And I mean, it's a great thing. I feel like it's all within all of us. We all have our own platform, and it's all about how you use it. Like people may prefer Twitter over Instagram or YouTube over Facebook. And so for me, it is very different because, you know, I was told to go to school for this. But then like I turned around and I taught at the Ohio Media School, and I'm like, I went to school for 4 years, you know, and I did different things to make sure I was able to get into this one space where now it's simply just creating a channel and, you know, doing your own thing. So it's not one thing anymore. I think that's the biggest thing that I had to learn because it took me a long time to really even like appreciate a podcast. I was a low key hater, like, nobody gonna do no podcast. Like, but now it's like, let me learn more. But I felt like that's kind of how I felt. I don't know how to really describe it. I mean, you got people who are self-taught, and then you got those that went to school for it. And now being self-taught is more admirable, and it's starting to succeed further than those that may go to school for it. So I think the value of teaching yourself is one of the things that comes from this industry.
Thank you. That's a bar. The value of teaching yourself is beneficial in this industry in particular, but really across
all
the board
around
right now. Yeah. So a majority of the youth that we serve through AMP, so the youth that are here with us today, and then the youth that we serve through coaches, I would say the average age is around 17 to 19, right? 17 when you're getting started to go. We serve 16 to 24-year-olds. And so the question that we like to ask is, at the age of about 17, where were you at? What was your outlook and what were your goals as far as your career path and like overall?
Wow. That was 10 years ago. Doesn't feel like it though. I know, right? I look 10 years ago, when I think the 17, I think I was just graduating. So I kind of started school early. So I was always the baby of the group. And you said, where was I at compared then to now?
Like about your outlook and your goals, your career goals.
Well, I've always been ambitious. I've always been the one to just go out and do things, never had a fear. At that age, I really didn't want to go to college, but my parents kind of like, they pretty much made me go to college. Like my mom was like, take some time off. My dad was like, go to college. We'll make sure you get a car, because I was tired of catching the bus everywhere. And honestly, true, like I didn't even really apply for any schools. Like it just wasn't something that I really see myself doing. I was done with school. I'm not a school person. I enjoy being in class. I enjoy being around people, but I never liked having to study for a test. I just didn't like those things. Those things didn't bring me joy. So I ended up going to school still. College was just kind of the thing that you just transition to. I feel like at that age, you wanted to do your own thing, but you still didn't feel like you could do your own thing. So I went to college. I ended up going to the University of Akron for about a semester and a half, and then I dropped out. But I ended up going back. So I guess to answer your question, like, I was just living. I really wasn't thinking much about what I wanted to do. I just kind of was just having fun, going to school, working a job, and just having fun. I really didn't think too much about where I wanted to be at. And I think maybe I was always involved in stuff. Like, I did things. I did YPAW, which was like a performing arts. Like, there was always programs, kind of like Lead the Way. Like, I was always in stuff, but I never, like, looking at it now, I feel like I didn't do enough then that I could have been working on sooner, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah. I also want to shout out that Miss Chantel Johnson gave you big ups for The Office, the subliminal, rep, and then also repping 330 and Joe Budden. So we see you out there, Miss Chantel. Thank you for that. But eventually you did major in something that put you on this path. So how did you start? What was your major? When did you decide to declare? What was that like?
So when I decided to go to college, I already knew I wanted to do communications. The reason for that was because I spent my junior and sophomore year, just to give a background story, I had went to Kenmore, which is like a public school. That was my first time going to public school. My mom didn't like it. She felt like the direction wasn't good for me. So for the 2 years, I was just going to a school. I was getting in trouble, stuff like that, but I wasn't like a bad kid. So she pulled me out of there and took me to Barberton. Barberton is mostly like predominantly white. It was a suburb school. Like, it really changed who I was. They had like Apple laptops and computers. Like, they had a lot of nice stuff. And they also had what was a TV studio. So that's where I learned that I really enjoyed like creating movies, and like I felt like I was really good at it. I would just put stuff together around the school, and my teacher would always be like, you have really good visuals for putting things together to where people can understand it. And so when I decided to go to school, that's when I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep doing this because I enjoy creating videos and content, and I enjoy talking. So that's how it was so easy for me to claim my major. I never really had an issue with figuring out like, oh yeah, I'll just do this. Looking back, I probably would have did more of a trade, I would say, but for me to go to school for 4 years. But yeah, that's how I ended up picking my major, was based off me doing the TV studio at school.
Okay, so exposure and access to the actual tools to get hands-on experience doing it, kind of like at a low risk exposure, right? Because it was available at school, so it's not like something you had to pay for or invest in. It's just something you could pick up and kind of get your hands on.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned that in your experience through communication. So I think, is that the catch-all that you would kind of say this career path is through, is communications, radio, blog, content creation?
Do I think like communications is the starting point?
No, is it like a good catch-all for the industry to refer to it as communications?
No, not in my opinion. I don't think that, because I feel like it's something that you need in every entity now. Every job should have a podcast or some form of communication where people can learn more, not just about what it is your job is, but more about the person. I think like it's not about communications anymore. When I see kids that's going to school for journalism, in my head, I'm like, okay, well, what do you really want to do, and why can't you do that now? I think communications is not in my opinion, I don't think you need to go to school for communications. We all have a voice. It's all about learning who you are and learning more of your values and what you feel like you want to talk about.
Okay, so this is great though, because you talked about teaching at the Ohio Media School. And then I also know that you've taken on different programs and certifications to add value to what you're doing. So if it's not majoring in communications, and this is a skill set that I hear you say that's valuable for everyone, right, in every kind of industry, what should we major in, or what kind of programs should we participate in? How do we get the skill sets to sharpen that tool?
To do like radio, YouTube, and things of that nature? Is
Sure.
that what you're making reference? I would say
that, and to incorporate this leg into every industry, or have that skill set, whether you're an entrepreneur and you're doing it on your own, or something to consider for the organization that you work on behalf of.
Yeah, so I want to be very clear. I don't think going to get your education is a bad thing. I think that if you are in a situation where you cannot financially afford it, I think that there are other opportunities for you to look into. One would be find someone who's already doing what you're doing, what you're wanting to do. And because network is the most important thing. The only way I was able to get all of the jobs I had was because I knew somebody. That's the only reason why I was able to really get ahead. And I knew someone because I communicated with them. I was never afraid to be like, oh, how did you get started doing that? So as far as like other forms of education, meeting people, because if people know what you're wanting to do and try to do, they'll always share something that's going on. Like when I did find out about other programs or just free education, it was because someone told me about it. So I would just say for me, it's just know who you know, your network. That's the biggest form of like research or anything that you can hold on to is knowing somebody. I can't really say like, oh yeah, go to school for this, go to school for that, because financially, if you don't have it, it's just gonna make you stress out. And then it's for me. That's for me, I would say. But I would say if you had the alternative between school and a trade school, I would say try Ohio Media School, because it's going to give you the opportunity to meet people who are strictly focused on that same thing that you're doing. Whereas with college, you'll have class with people who aren't doing the same thing that you want to do. But maybe you meet someone at a trade school and y'all can go work on a documentary that you're wanting to do, and you have the equipment available to you. So that's always a good thing. But just know that like it's gonna cost. So everything comes with a cost.
Yeah, the nice thing about being involved in a program like AMP, we have some ability to support individuals who are going through a short-term program to add a skill set. So that might be something like the Ohio Media School has to offer. But getting back like more into who you are and your path, can take us through where you started, like as a communications major, what your job experience was, how you've kind of traversed through your career to where you are today.
Okay, so I'm trying to think where I want to start. So like I went to school my freshman year. I did not want to be there. I didn't do well there. So I ended up dropping out and moving to Georgia. I didn't drop out. I finished like my first year and then I moved to Georgia. When I got to Georgia, I was able to kind of experience more. I did like some short films here. But then like I felt like I needed to go back to school. So I ended up going back home to Akron and finishing out my school year. While I was there, I ended up having the opportunity to be on air because the school had a radio station that was very much in competition with the other FM stations. Like we were in competition with Cleveland, and that was the only station we really had was Cleveland. But just with Cleveland, and so it gave me the opportunity to be on air, know what it's like to be a personality. I got a chance to interview people. They weren't like large name people, but it still gave me that experience to know how to run a show. Originally, I was doing the TV side of it, but I'm not gonna lie, it was very hard. I am from the North, which is predominantly white. There wasn't a lot of Black people on the TV side. Not that that matters, but that's the truth in the industry. Depending on where you work at, you will sometimes be the only one. And I think for me, it was a struggle because I didn't feel like I belonged because I was fighting for a space. So I ended up just doing radio because that was kind of where it was for me to have the opportunity to have my own. I could do my own show, all of that. You didn't need a whole team to just do a radio show. So I started doing that. When I graduated, I moved to Atlanta. I literally walked the stage on Thursday and I packed everything in my car and moved to Atlanta probably like Sunday. So it was a very quick transition, just trying to navigate through Georgia. Georgia's a really big city and you can get around the wrong crowd. However, I was able to get a job at the AM station. I made $10 an hour. Now, the AM station was cool, but it was in a house, and it was so not what I thought it was going to be. But I still managed. I made it work. I started my own show there, and then I got homesick. And so I moved back home. When I moved back home, it wasn't easy, y'all. Like, I would say, like, I moved a lot, and I think a lot of it is just because I came from a small city. And you know, we think that Ohio, even Columbus is pretty relatively big, but I'm telling you, when you get to like a large city and you see like it's not just a few, but it's like a bunch of people trying to do the same thing that you're wanting to do, it's important to know who you are and know what you want to represent. It's important to know your morals and know what you stand for. So I felt like when I finished, I was a board operator. That's what it was. It's called a board operator and a producer. So I had the opportunity to do that here in Georgia. I used those same skill sets and I moved back to Ohio and I came to Columbus. I was able to, I got to Columbus in July. I didn't get an opportunity to work for Radio One, which is like Power, Magic, and Joy. I didn't get a chance to work there until December. But mind you, I have been calling every day, probably getting on their last nerves, emailing, going to different events, just showing my face so that they can know who I am and know how I carry myself. So I got in at the, I ended up getting a call, and I swear I thought it was so fake. I was like, hello? And so he called me, he was like, yeah, I want you to come in for an interview. And so they interviewed me and I ended up getting the position. Around that same time, I also got the offer to go to Ohio Media School. Let me tell you about Ohio Media School. I literally went in there because I was like, okay, I feel like I'm not getting enough education. I need to be doing something. Let me go to the school. So I originally went to the school to be a student. And they were like, okay, well, what do you do? And I told them like what I have been doing and what I went to school for. He's like, oh, why don't you be a teacher? Okay, sign me up. I'll do that. And so, that was really how that went. I went in there to learn more about the school and ended up getting a job to be an instructor. So I quit my job. Because when I had got to Columbus, I was working at United Healthcare, making like $16 an hour. I quit my job, y'all, for me to make $8 an hour and some change at Radio One, which is Power and all them others. It's 3 stations. We have 3 stations. So I made about $8.25 an hour, working probably like about 20 hours. You had to be there at 5 a.m. in the morning to about 10 a.m. So it was never like 8 hours. So I started off doing that. Then I had a chance to be on the radio. And that was kind of where it all started at. And then I ended up creating a YouTube channel so I could have a second platform to really voice how I feel. Because when you're on radio, there's still sensory, there's still certain things that you can or can't say. You can't have a view about everything. It's more so open up the platform for other people to call in, for other people to share their view. And that was one thing that I was like, I want to say how I feel too. So that's kind of where it all went to.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about your experience and how, so it seems like you've created a number of these experiences just by, like you said, who you know and making yourself seen and calling and being kind of relentless in doing that. Can you talk about your experience as a red carpet personality?
So the red carpets, you don't really have to like know anybody as far as you don't have to be on a radio station. You can create your, let me tell y'all, the red carpets is a mess. It's a mess because you got people on there with just their cell phones, just their regular cell phones and just recording. But as far as like my first red carpet experience, which one was it? Trying to think. Oh, my homegirl had told me about it. I had met this girl, literally met her at T-Mobile. She was like, oh, I was like, want to know about a phone. And she was just like, oh, well, what do you do? And that was kind of how the conversation started. Met up with her. She found out about my radio show. And then she was saying that she do red carpets. So you contact the PR agencies and tell them to put you on a list. And they will send out, which is called like media passes. So if you're wanting to be on the red carpet, you just pretty much fill out the application. It's going to ask you simple questions like, what's your name, what you represent, how many passes do you need, and just wanting to know like your website so they can see like how many followers you're having or things of that nature. You fill that out and then that's pretty much it. Like they'll either let you know if you got it or not. Typically I would get it because I work for the radio station, but if they know you and they are familiar with your name and brand, then that's just pretty much it. You just get the passes and you go there and You ask your questions. It's very quick and fast. It's not really, it looks glamorous, but it can be very competitive because some people will try to get in your way and stop you. I really don't really care for red carpets that much anymore because I don't want to be rushing just to try to get someone to answer a question. I would prefer to set up my own interviews and interview people that way. But it was a good experience. I would say that no experience was handed to me. I had to go get it. So you drive yourself there. When I lived in Ohio, I had to drive myself from Ohio to Georgia. I had to find my own makeup artist. You do everything on your own. Like, there's nobody saying like, oh, we're ready for you now. It's just you saying that to yourself.
So some other questions about that, because that seems to be like a cool aspect of your career experience that you've had. Like, can you name drop a little bit? Like, who are people that you've been able to get in front of through that experience, or either through your vlog or your YouTube? That, and then was there any monetary gain through it? Because you shared making $10 on the board that you shared in Georgia with the AM station, and then making $8 with Radio One, which is a larger radio presence that I think that most of us in Columbus are aware of. If you're aware of Radio One, what was it? Power 107.5, Joy, Magic. Can you go ahead and put a green check mark for yes under participants? And then if you've never heard of those radio stations before, go ahead and put a red X. Because I don't know about any of you out there, but when you say that, and we're like, but we know Radio One. Like, yeah. It seems like it has a big platform, but then you say that you're barely making minimum wage, if that. It's like, how do you survive off of that? So 2 questions. Go ahead and name drop for us so we can know how real it is. And 2, like, what was the monetary implications maybe of the red carpet, or different aspects that you have in your career, different avenues to earn a living through what you do?
Yeah. No, I want to be very transparent. I was shocked myself when I went from here in Atlanta, working at an AM station in a house. Like, I really want to show you guys a picture of the house. In a house, making $10 an hour to making $8.25 an hour. And I didn't know what the pay was going to be. I just got my offer letter from the Radio One in Ohio, and was just like, oh, okay, I'm working at the radio station. And then it was like $8.25. I was like, what is this? So the way it works is all about markets. So I can't remember, but I think Ohio is like market 30. And so the money comes off of your market. So if I'm in Georgia's in the top 5, I'm going to make more money there because they're going to have more commercials, more listeners. It's just more money. So that's kind of how it works. But I will say this, though, maybe like after 5 months of working there, the way they did it, though, your boss called you into the office and was like, I've been working really hard for you, trying to make sure you're getting all that you deserve because we value you. And so I was able to get you a raise for $10. I'm like, I'm doing my job. And then kind of find out everybody in there got a raise to $10. So it wasn't even like I'm special. It was like, it was funny because I was like, oh, you got a raise too? What? And so, it's more so market. It's all market based. As far as the red carpets, I was able to interview Kurt Franklin, Yolanda Adams, Cam Newton. Who else? Escape. I really enjoyed interviewing Escape. 702. A couple other people. I can't think of everybody. But yeah, it was cool. It's a great experience. It's more so the experience. You make your money off of other things, like doing events for people, or finding out what your passion. If you're a DJ, you make money off of parties. The one thing that you could eventually get within radio is called remotes, which is where you'll hear people on the radio say, hey, we're live right here at Sprint, come down and see us. Like, you get extra money from that. Utilizing your social media. So if you want to promote people's things on social media, that's another way for you to get more money. As far as YouTube goes, you do have to have 1,000 subscribers, and then you have to have 10,000 views from the date that you apply for you to get some money from it. You have to have 10,000 views overall So that's not from one video, that's from like all of your videos from a year in which you applied. So if I applied today, from today of whatever today is, April 17th, all the way from April 17th of 2019, I would have had to have 10,000 views altogether.
10,000 views within a year. And does that restarts every year?
Well, no, not necessarily. If you wanted, so let's say like I started my YouTube in 2017. So whatever views I have, when I apply, you have to apply. When you apply, it's gonna go off of that day to a year from that day that you apply. So if you
go ahead, I'm sorry.
So if you had views after or before April 17th of 2019, those views are not going to count when you apply for you to get money from YouTube. Does that make sense?
So your count starts the day that you apply for a year. It wouldn't take into consideration the views that you had prior to applying.
From that year, from a whole year, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm probably confusing you. Bottom line is, if you're gonna do YouTube, you gotta be consistent. You gotta make sure you got enough people viewing your things, and you have to have 10,000 views. So if you've done 50 videos all together, they have to equal 10,000 views. That makes sense.
So
but as far as money
per video on average, 2,000 views per video on average within 1 year.
No, 10,000 views all together. So one video got 50 views, one video got 1,000 views, one video got 4 views. You have to add all of that up.
Sure.
Yeah. You got it?
Am I the only one? I need help. I'm trying to make sure that
I understand what she's saying. So she's saying like if you have 10 videos, one might have 100 views, one might have 200 views. Out of all the videos on your channel, they need to equal 10,000 total. So it doesn't matter how much you have of each, but as long as you're at 10,000, then that's good.
No, I got that. I'm trying to understand the time component. So
does
that need to be within
you're saying
1 year, or is
it has to be a calendar year before when you apply, right? So if you're applying today, April 17, 2020, you're counting from April 17, 2019 to today, and all the views you got in between that year need to be at 10,000 so you can apply to become a partner, and you'll start monetizing your videos after that.
Sure. So any of the views that you had before April 17th, 2019 don't count towards that 10,000.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ariana.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I need to carry you with me.
All right. I think I see another question. It says, so we've talked about this, but how would you measure success in the industry then?
That's a really good question. I think, I had to reevaluate that one, because I think success for me is just being able to stay in it and know who you are. I was battling that. I really was, because I kind of walked away from the radio station, and I was like, dang, I'm not being successful. I think for me, I thought success was, Lala, Wendy Williams, Charlamagne the God, like they all start off in radio. That was the goal for a lot of people. You get a job at radio and then you move up. You get a job at radio and then you get this opportunity, that opportunity. I thought that was the start of it. But success to me is just you keep doing it. That's the success. You don't stop. You find other ways. You find other opportunities that works best for you. You learn that it's really not about having a bunch of viewers and followers. It's really just about you creating a brand that someone can relate to, even if it ain't everyone. So I think that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around, because I definitely experienced some things, and just made me feel like, what am I doing? Especially when I first started at Radio One, this is between all of us, they were trying to put me on Joy. And not saying that I have anything wrong with that, but I feel like it's another example of how your morals have to align with where you work at. Like your boss has to know you, and people don't really take the time to know you. Sometimes they just place you where they think that it's gonna work for them, or where they think that it's gonna work where they don't gotta hear you anymore. And it's deeper to it than that. And I think that that's just how I look at it. That's just how I look at it.
Okay. So we're getting into the last 10 minutes of being on here. So we like to be consistent with our time, but I do have a few more questions for you. So this is going to be kind of more rapid fire, or kind of one sentence from your gut kind of thing.
Got it.
But we work with a number of our young people who say this is what they want to do. They're enamored by YouTube and being on social media. And then even in our current state, our virtual world is very like right in front of our face. We've even moved to using social media, right? And
right.
So what would you say to our demographics, 16 to 24, either currently in high school, recently graduated high school, working towards completing their GED, in workforce development, working towards like earning a living to take care of themselves and maybe a family? What would you say to them pursuing this as part of their career?
I would say for over the last 10 years, I think my biggest answer is no. My biggest suggestion or word of advice is know that it's not just a box. I work at Chase now. I'm a banker at Chase. And I feel like I found joy in that. And it's the very exact same thing. I'm using communication. I'm talking. They have other things in which you could still utilize your voice or share what it is that you're doing. Like they have different things that utilize the social media. So I don't want people to just get so caught up in like the interviews of celebrities or, you know, being seen, going viral. Like you can do that in a small entity. It doesn't have to be a number of views on social media. That's a whole nother world. I think the biggest thing is knowing that passion is not a plan, it's a feeling. And if you're passionate about something and you feel it, you should be able to do that anywhere, not just on YouTube or on the radio.
Is there a certain way that career coaches like ourselves can support the youth that are interested in this area specifically?
Like what ways can you support?
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest way you can support is to tell others. I think people want it to be where their things and their content is out and shown. So one of the things I try to do is make sure I'm liking everybody's stuff or reposting it or just trying to like do my part in making people feel. I don't want people to generate a feeling from a double tap, but that's the society we live in. So I think supporting the youth, like I'll help a student. Like you want to do a channel art, let's set one up for you. I can show you how to make a channel art. I can show you the tools, the apps to download. I can show you those things. I can't do it for you, but I can at least lead you to the water.
So with that, the way that we like to end, because I want to kind of wrap up.
Hold on, I want to say one more thing. I'm sorry. I also want to make sure that we're showing them ways to create. I think people get caught up in just like the dancing and a lot of these other stuff and not realizing that like, what are your morals? Because that's the most important thing in this industry is knowing what your morals are. Because if you let anybody take you anywhere, you liable to end up where you don't want to be at.
Thanks. I don't know if what we have to offer has caught up with, you got a hand clap for that. I don't know if what we offer is caught up with this industry and where we are as far as workforce development and youth workforce development. And so, like I'm asking a very pointed question. We have certain dollars that we can utilize to support our young people. So we have a young person completing the dental assisting schooling, which is a 9-week program where they can come out and be ahead because they have this certification or skill set. Is there any type of schooling or skill set or resource that we can help provide our young people that are used to or interested in this to help propel their career so that way they have an additional, you know how on your resume you put like, I'm adept in Microsoft Office. Like, is there something like that, some kind of Adobe or some kind of program that they can get a skill set in that's going to add value to their personal creation, and then even like getting a job that helps to get more experience in creating like this?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say like a marketing course. I'm not sure if there's one for those that are still in high school, but I can do my research and see if I can find one. But I think marketing is very important, like a certification in marketing. It's one online. It's with eCornell, which is an online school. They have like certification programs that you can get. But if you're looking for one that's like local in Ohio, I can't think of one. I can't think of one that's local.
Are there short-term programs offered by Ohio Media School that would be beneficial?
I think that would be a good thing to reach out to and ask them for, even if it's just them getting an internship. They always have internships available, but it's geared towards their students. I mean, they have to have a certain number of students in class and things of that nature, but I think it's something that they'll be definitely open to. They have like community programs or expectations that they have to meet yearly or quarterly. So they want to show their presence, their brand presence.
Gotcha. Well, thank you. I don't see any other questions, but the last two things that we do like to end with is a takeaway. So a takeaway, if we didn't hear you say anything else, what do you want to make sure that we hear? Another is a book. Is there a book or some kind of content that you would suggest that we reach into? We like to build our Lead the Way Learning Academy library. So a book or a resource that would add value. And then 3, a challenge. Is there something that you can tell us to do today that might add value to this industry? So a takeaway, a book, and a challenge.
A takeaway. Let me write it down because I'll be forgetting. So a takeaway from like me and what I'm saying, right, would be that it's okay to dream a new dream. I think that because of how I was raised and the environment I was raised in, it was always tunnel vision. You focus on this one thing, but now I'm starting to see that it's more to it than just dreaming one thing and getting so focused in that, and maybe looking at the dream with add-ons that kind of bring it all together. So that would be the one thing. And also just knowing, like I said, passion is not a plan. You don't plan passion. It's more of a feeling. And sometimes that feeling can come and go. And so it's always knowing how to really pinpoint what you're passionate about. A book that I'm reading right now that I would recommend is Principles by Ray Dalio. It's a really good book. It more so just channels like what are some of the principles you have set for your life. And then a challenge. The challenge that I would say that I'm working on, that we can all work on, I asked myself the other day, based on how you speak to yourself, how inspired are you? They say we have over 80,000 thoughts that happen in one day, and 80% of them can be deemed as negative thoughts. So it's just important to make sure that the way you speak to yourself is inspiring for you. I'm like, sometimes I can speak all this stuff to everybody else, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what about me? You know, so just making sure that I'm being inspirational to myself. I challenge everyone to make sure that we're doing that, taking care of ourselves.
Thank you. All right. We got 2 minutes left. I'd like for you to plug yourself. So we had somebody asking in the comments, like, who are you? Like your name, your social media information, maybe your business. Go ahead and plug yourself, please.
Yeah, so my name is Taylor. You can follow me on all platforms at Yo What's Good Tay. The whole thing of Yo What's Good Tay is everything for real. I'm gonna always give you a perspective to see the good in everything that happens and goes on in our lives. Outside of that, I do have a movement for mental health. It's called Quiet Thoughts on the Canvas. So we use art. You guys can't really see it, but we use art as a way to spark conversation. Mental health is something that's very passionate to me. And you can follow us everywhere at Quiet Thoughts on the Canvas. And the whole objective of that is for us to not be afraid to share those quiet thoughts in our head that we don't think that anyone else is thinking, but mostly everyone is thinking it.
That's great. Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that. In the comments, we have that Quiet Thoughts on the Campus. Canvas is a dope event and a dope brand, and I would second that. I've been to a number of events and have been able to volunteer. So hopefully we can follow and find out more about both of those entities. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. It's valuable. It gives us, I know it extends my perception and my understanding of what this industry is, and maybe helping a young person build their brand parallel to something that they're passionate in as well, so that way they can earn a living while they're doing it, and it can coexist and be complementary and not feel like it's taken away. Like, that's probably one of the biggest takeaways that I got. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And it's 2:00, so enjoy your Friday.
You too.
All right, peace.
Bye. I don't know how to cancel this. Oh, there you go.
Or we can just have side conversation while everybody's getting on. It's kind of cool. No, that was very helpful.